Today's episode is brought to you in part by Liquid Death. Murder your thirst with 100% mountain water from the Alps, made by nature, not in a lab. Available both still or sparkling, Liquid Death is infinitely recyclable in tallboy cans, just like beer, and never in plastic. Get a case delivered to your house today at unitedweDrink.com/liquiddeath, and you can get a free koozie pack by using the code FREEKOOZIEAF. That's FREEKOOZIEAF at checkout. Just add any Liquid Death koozie pack to your cart, use the code, buy some water, and get these sweet-ass koozies for free with your thirst-murdering water. From Liquid Death at unitedwedrink.com/liquiddeath. Now enjoy the show. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Santa Claus's favorite beer podcast from the greater South Florida area. Welcome to United We Drink, right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mary Mike Urevich, and I'm on Santa's good and naughty list, probably somewhere right in the middle. I don't know what that says about me, or if that's even how that list works. But with me, as usual, is Kevin Don't Call Me Kringle Abbott. Our friend and co-host Jolly Joel Codner is on holiday assignment to find North Pole's finest pastry stout. I hope that search is going well, my friend. Kevin, how are you?
It's an honor and a privilege, as always, to be here with you, Mike. And I'm pledging to you. I'm downtrodden. I'm bumfuzzled about Joel not being here. So I am going to step up my game. I'm going to be a little bit more surly. I'm going to be a little bit more opinionated. And for you, Michael Tiberius Urevich, and all of our fans, I promise that I'm going to step up big time here.
All right. Have you already drank some Malort?
I looked at a bottle. I couldn't quite drink it, but it caught my eye line, and then I got scared.
That's a step. It's a small step, but it's a step.
It's a token gesture, Mike. Let's just call it what it is. A token gesture that's all I'm comfortable doing.
You're toking? You're high?
That too.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Then you are right in
Merry Christmas.
I want to really start things off here by thanking everyone who joined in on the live stream with us and our friends at Bitter Units. We were able to raise $1,310 for Feeding America. We beat our amount that we raised last year, and I'm just floored by the generosity of our good fans and listeners out there. It really means a lot. Every single dollar of that amount that we raised is going to Feeding America. We don't take a single dime, and Streamlabs Charity, who we ran the donations through, does not take any money at all either. So good on all of you. Thank you, everyone, once again. It was a lot of fun, and hope to do it again next year.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so happy to hear that we raised that much.
This episode is coming out a few days before Christmas. One of my favorite holidays, personally. It's kind of funny as an atheist and a non-religious person that I love to celebrate this time that so commonly gets said is being canceled by people like me.
You mean you as an atheist and a non-religious person really enjoy this overtly secular holiday?
Yes. But it's still my fault that I'm taking the Christ out of Christmas.
Yeah, you should be ashamed of yourself, Mike. Myself, I am putting him right back in Christmas. I'm a very religious person, as you know, and I'm actually in church right now. I'm actually podcasting from a service.
That is so
Thank you.
very...
Thank you, Your Holiness. Okay, go ahead.
Amen.
Yeah, amen.
Blood of Christ. Sorry, had to get my sip of my celebration in there. Blood of Christ, you know. Now that we have completely alienated our religious listeners,
let's now go and alienate the rest.
Yes.
What else can we talk about?
Okay. All
Politics.
Hey, guess what? Beer sucks. Fuck you all.
Peace, we're out.
All right. So, being in the holiday spirit, I am drinking a celebration. It's my last one, actually, from the fridge. But I also have my Liquid Death here with me, and I also have a little glass of a new whiskey that I came about from my whiskey advent calendar that I really liked. My wife really liked, so she went out and bought a bottle of it. It is Minor Case Rye aged in sherry casks, and it's only about a $30 bottle, and I think that it's delicious. Angel's Envy, who a lot of people know, their ryes commonly get conditioned in other casks, sherry being one of them, and is a fantastic one. And I feel like it's not as good as Angel's Envy, but hell, like for $20 to $30 less, this is a hell of a bang for your buck.
Sounds like a good find, Mike.
What are you having, Kev?
So I am actually not drinking a Barrel of Monk's beer, which
You're
I believe is the first
beer.
I wish I would have thought of that. I would be right now. No, I am drinking a Sam Adams Holiday White Ale. This is out of the mixed 12-pack of the holiday beers. I picked one up so I could drink me some Old Fezziwig. Mm-hmm. And this is some of the beers that were left over. Holiday Porter, good as always. Fezziwig, always good. And the White Ale's a nice little beer.
It's okay.
So it's my festive holiday thing.
I got the variety pack. I still have one Fezziwig and one Porter left that I'll probably be having around Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. Although I gotta say, Dark Horse, I really enjoyed the Reunion IPA in that pack. I thought that was a very nice kind of West Coasty style IPA, but there's like notes that just remind me of the winter for some reason.
That was a solid beer. I was happy to have that. The thing that broke my heart was the fact that I don't think I got a holiday pack last year or the year before or what have you. I remember getting 3 of each one of the beers in that pack with 3 Old Fezziwig and 3 holiday porters, only getting 2.
No, you're wrong.
What do you mean I'm wrong?
It's been 2 of 6 varieties for a while.
Okay, well, in that case, I haven't had it for a long time because I've never seen a holiday pack with 6 varieties in it.
Because for a while, they were also running with... so you always have Boston Lager. You always have Winter Lager. And for a while, they were running with Fezziwig, Holiday Porter, and Chocolate Bock. And then having that one other space for something different each year. I remember the Cranberry Lambic one year, which wasn't really a Lambic, but was an okay beer. But last year, they didn't put Fezziwig in this pack at all. And they did packs of Fezziwig by itself that you could only buy at the Boston Brewery. And people, of course, were up in arms. People have wanted a Fezziwig pack, like 6-pack or 12-pack for a long time, and Sam Adams has just not budged on giving that to the people. You got to give the people what they want. Someone named Excalibur likes to say, but they didn't put Fezziwig in the pack. People lost their collective minds and put it back in there this year. I've had one already of that, and it is definitely one of my holiday favorites. And I do miss Chocolate Bach a little bit, though.
Yeah, I forgot about Chocolate Bach. Yeah, the Fezziwig is something I've been doing something through Barrel of Monks every Friday called Old Favorite Friday, where we feature a beer that's a great beer that is not a it beer, not a lineup at the brewery beer, but an old standard, a beer you can get oftentimes a beer you can get at a grocery store. And Fezziwig was one of the ones we featured, which is one of my absolute all-time favorites. Just a great beer.
To tell a quick little story about Fezziwig, I was introduced to it, I don't remember in what year, but it was many, many years ago, in the aughts, early aughts or something along there, by a friend's uncle. When I stopped by their house, they were some close family friends, and I stopped by their house on Christmas morning to say hello and wish Merry Christmas and have breakfast with them. And her uncle, a blind man named Mark, he was drinking a beer.
Mark Fezziwig?
I wish. But he was drinking a beer, and he knew that I was into beer, and he was like, there's one more bottle in the fridge. Go grab it and have it for yourself. He's like, it's called Old Fezziwig. It's one of my favorite beers. And it was the first time I ever had it, and I was immediately turned on to it, and it became a thing for me every year to look for this beer in that variety pack. And I don't know, it's a fun little warming story for me to recall from a man who has since passed, and him introducing me to his favorite beer that became one of my favorite holiday beers, and just how that beer gives me a nice holiday story.
Okay, we're just going to make this an entire podcast about Old Fezziwig. So this is my idea, Mike.
Okay.
Between our two breweries, we have some pretty good brewers that know their stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So we get the brain trust together, and we drink Fezziwig, we create a beer in that similar flavor profile as a collaboration beer around Christmas next year. We call it New Fezziwig. Right? And then we can have as much as we want.
I was going to go with New Wiggy Fez, but your name works too.
Okay. So let's get on that. We've got about 11 months.
All right.
To put this together.
I'll talk to Matt tomorrow.
Okay, and if anyone listening has any ideas about this and wants to throw their hat in the ring, we're open to suggestions.
We don't have to throw Belgian yeast into this, do we?
We actually brewed our first batch of beer ever without Belgian yeast about a week ago.
I heard about it.
Yeah. So, times they are a-changin'. Isn't that what Bob Dylan said?
Or Axl Rose, one of them.
Very commonly misplaced for each other.
Yeah. So talking about Christmas beers here, you release a Christmas beer every year, Father Christmas, and I believe we talked maybe a little bit about this during the Seasonal Creep episode. We definitely touched on how winter beers have this very small window of opportunity because of people being like, that's not the time for this. And because pumpkin beers are still cool until Thanksgiving. And then a lot of people don't say Christmas can have its time until after Thanksgiving. Well, then you have less than a month. And then Christmas beers are no longer popular the day after Christmas. So winter beers, Christmas beers have this less than a 1 month window, and less than half of it, like 10% of it is actually in winter because it's only 5 days in the winter when we have Christmas. So how difficult of a thing is it to really put out a Christmas themed beer, a winter beer, build up a hype around a release like this for your market and for your tasting room?
I dread it every year, honestly. And it sucks because in the Belgian, if you don't know, in the Belgian brewing tradition, Christmas beer is a big deal. Pretty much every brewery of any note and tons of breweries of no note do a Belgian Christmas beer. Oftentimes a Belgian dark strong ale, but there are tons of examples of blonde beers. They're usually stronger beers, right? They're usually rich, malty, big beers. So we, of course, were going to make a Christmas beer. It was a beer that was in development way before Barrel of Monks even was a legal entity, before the brewery was called Barrel of Monks. When my partners Bill, Matt, and Keith were homebrewing on a back patio, they were doing the first batches of Father Christmas. So we knew it was going to be a big deal for us. But learning the difficulties that you just stated about the timing issues, about having to project how much you're actually going to be able to sell when many distributors aren't trying to give you pre-sales for a Christmas beer in October. And by the way, a Belgian dark strong ale that needs to be bottle conditioned, that beer doesn't turn over in 21 days, guys. It certainly doesn't turn over in 13, which a lot of people do with some of their craft beers. We're talking about a month of tank time, and we're talking about 3 weeks of bottle conditioning. So if I need to get that beer out in mid-November, I got to be brewing that beer and be thinking about brewing that beer in September. So it's very difficult. It's scrambling to get commitments that you know might not come through. And then either having way too much beer that its shelf life is very short, even in your own tasting room, or having not nearly enough beer and feeling like, man, I missed my opportunity to sell a lot more beer. So it's very, very difficult. Right now, this year, I actually had a distributor that committed to 30 cases of 750s, which are not an easy sell, by the way, for those people that aren't in our industry. It's a tough package size to sell. And when they pulled out of it, that meant I had 30 more cases that I didn't plan on selling in my tap room that I had to sell in my tap room. And that just hurts. That hurts the plans for my specialty versions of Father Christmas, my barrel age versions, because now they have to compete with the regular one. It hurts my draft offerings. It really puts me in a bad place.
I feel like it also hurts your guys in the brewery who like put a lot of effort into making X amount of beer, and then to hear through the grapevine or directly from you, X distributor isn't going to take this much now, so now we're stuck with more than what we wanted to, and they're kind of bummed by that. Like it's trickle-down depression. I believe Reagan developed it.
Well, I think you're right. This was the political portion of the podcast that I mentioned earlier. In our industry, we have this very strange. So it's all about supply and demand. It's not strange. It's about as natural as possible. But there are times when we could brew more of something. Let's talk about Sam Adams. They could brew more Old Fezziwig, and they can put it in the 6-packs. But if they did that, would they sell as many holiday packs? Are they doing it specifically to try to drive sales and rarity in a very large mass-produced beer? I mean, that's a huge brewery. Take it down to our size. There are tons of breweries that artificially keep their numbers low when they could make more because they want to sell out. They want to drive rarity, which makes their beer more special, more tradable, what have you. We all know this happens. And every time we release a beer, we're thinking about that. If it's a great beer, but it sits on our shelves for 6 months, it will at least subconsciously not seem like as good of a beer as a beer that sells out in a day or a week or a month. And it's a thing that we all have to deal with. So when my Christmas beer, when I make it so that I will sell the amount of beer that I'm looking for in a 2 or 3 week period from the release date through our Christmas party. And then I can sell my variants, my barrel age versions from the previous year, which have been aging from that previous year's batch. And those can be the focus for my Christmas party through the end of the year. And then when I'm sitting on these beers for longer periods of time, it just makes them look not as special. And we're walking that line every time. And it's a frustrating thing, and I hate having to play that game, but that's part of this industry. People will not think your beer is special if it doesn't sell out.
This is true. But here's a little argument someone might say to you. Well, you're making this big Belgian dark, strong, high ABV beer. You don't sell all of it. You guys have a vintage bottle collection.
Oh yeah.
You just put that into your vintage collection. You age it and you sell it as an aged product. What are your thoughts on people who would think something like that, or of aging this beer?
We've done it. We've done that in previous years when we've had too much product for similar reasons, whether it be fact that we just brewed too much or we had commitments that fell through. And we will find a way. It's a luxury that my brewery has that other breweries don't necessarily have. If you're Sierra Nevada and you're putting out Celebration, you don't have the luxury of keeping those bottles and selling them next year. We do. So that's fine. We'll figure out things to do with it. It's the luxury I have with really 90% of my portfolio, as far as brands go, age 3 to 5 years standing on their heads, which is really, really great. But it's still a situation where you're trying to brew to a certain amount to sell through and then go on to the next thing, because I've got another beer. I have a cam releases coming out in January. I've got Be Mine 750s with our cherry chocolate quadruple coming out in late January, early February. We've got a calendar and we're trying to shift our focus from this brand to this brand to this brand. And when you've got a hiccup and you've got extra volume that you weren't planning on holding on to, then you got to get creative. And it's just really, really frustrating. And when you've got a beer that is this specific, if I've got my Be Mine Cherry Chocolate Quad, I don't have to, even though it's technically my Valentine's Day beer. That doesn't really track. I can sell that in March and no one's going to bat an eyelash. But once December 26th happens, Christmas beer starts to be pretty
steeply discounted on stores.
In stores for sure, but even in our own tap room, we see a drop off in what people are looking for.
Yeah. And that's why I've always felt like the winter seasonal, especially if you have Christmas in your name, which you just shouldn't put Christmas in your name most of the time, just because of this, you get the shaft because you have such a small window and a short season, if you will. Pumpkin beers start coming out in July and can last until Thanksgiving, where people say they don't want winter beers until after Thanksgiving, and then they're like, yeah, I'm over it on December 26th. When's spring coming? Oh, we still have 3 months to go? Oh, okay. I mean, Sam Adams probably brings their spring seasonal pack out in late January, early February. It's the roughest of seasons, but yet it brings some fantastic beers, some great beers.
Yeah.
And I think we wanted to talk a little bit about some of our favorite Christmas beers, whether or not they're things that we have. Fezziwig is a tradition for me for the Christmas season. Celebration is as well. But, there's some beers out there that I should try to find a way to shoehorn into a tradition in my house, as if drinking needs to be more of a tradition in my house. But the first thing outside of those two that comes to my mind when I think about Christmas beers is St. Bernardus Christmas Ale.
I thought you were going to say Barrel Amongst Father Christmas, but
that's
okay.
I am not going to appease you in that manner.
That's okay.
On this show.
No, that's okay. It's not like you have a friend who does this for a living and who makes a pretty darn good dark Belgian strong ale. No, I think that Saint Bernard's Christmas obviously is a great one. I think one that is not as well known in most circles is the Daidola Still Not, which is absolutely fantastic. That might be my favorite Christmas Belgian Christmas ale.
I think it's also like probably one of Bill's favorite. Your partner at Barrel of Monks. I always remember him loving that beer.
If Bill was on this podcast, first of all, right now, the hairs on the back of his neck are standing up and his spidey sense is tingling. Someone's talking about Belgian Christmas beer because he knows more about these beers and appreciates and loves them more than anybody else I know in the world. And he would school us like nobody's business on some of these beers. For years, he's had a Christmas party at his house every year, and he puts out a menu of 20 or so different Belgian Christmas ales, some with 2 or 3 different vintages of them, and has all these available for tasting for all 20, 30 people at his house. And it is a spectacle because of the amount of beer he has that's well-aged and in vintage bottles. And I've tried just absolutely incredible beers that I never would have before and probably never will again in some ways.
I recall drinking vintage bottles of Still Not at Coffee District with Bill, you, other friends of ours. Coffee District, probably one of those places that got us into beer, who always carried like those Belgian styles, and I think that's probably why Bill loved them so much and would have vintages of those things and get specialty kegs of those every year when no one else around had them. And I definitely remember having some Still Nots with you fine folks over there before Barrel of Monks even opened up, before you even thought that you would be working for this radiologist who's talking about opening up a Belgian brewery in Boca. I mean, staying on the Belgian train there, another big classic one is the Delirium Noel. Big, like dark, strong as well, that I think you can find now in 16-ounce cans. You can find Christmas ale, St. Bernardus Christmas ale in 16-ounce cans now.
Well,
how the mighty have fallen.
and now Bill is getting sad just talking about Belgian Christmas ales in cans.
His hairs have not only gone down on the back of his neck, they have fallen out. They've pulled out knives and they are starting to stab his neck. They've
actually retracted. That's the opposite of that. Delirium Noel, I think, for people who are experts or pride themselves in their knowledge of Belgian beer, is probably on the low end of prestige, is the word I'm looking for. I think it's a fine beer. I think it's underrated, and I really enjoy it when I have it. But it's definitely one of those beers that is like, oh well, that's widely
nose up at it.
Yeah, that's widely available, and it's fine. It's good, but it's not St. Bernardus. It's not Still Not.
It's
widely
not available.
For whatever reason, this has been my experience with hanging out with that crowd of not really thinking a lot of Delirium Noel, but no, I definitely enjoy that beer. There's so many that are really interesting. Destruce makes a beer that is, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's basically Jesus wearing a Santa hat, to bring it back to the religious connotation of our entire show. It's To Jesus, TSJEESES is the name of the beer. Yeah. I think it's just Jesus. I think it's To Jesus. I think that's what it's supposed to be saying, but you're just drunk and you're saying, and that's what it sounds like.
This is To Jesus.
But that's a beer that is very highly respected in the circles of people that I know that love great Belgian Christmas beers, and a beer that I've been lucky enough to have on multiple occasions.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think I've ever even heard of that one. I'm familiar with the Struce, but not highly familiar with them. But yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of that one. Shifting to let's talk about some American Christmas icons. We mentioned Celebration. We mentioned Fezziwig, Holiday Porter. To me, being from Pennsylvania, Mad Elf from Trogs it becomes a big to do. We don't get them down here in Florida, but when that comes out in PA, people go for it, and they have barrel age variations of it. And when I was living up in PA in the 2018 to 2019 time, I was there in 2018 for Christmas, and seems forever ago because there wasn't a pandemic going on. But to be able to go to a bar, I went to an Italian restaurant that had Mad Elf on draft, and I'm like, I'll do that. Sure, why not? On like a cold winter evening, it was fucking fantastic tasting. And I just associate that now with my winter seasonals, even though I can't have it right now. I hope that one day I can be in a spot to where I can have Trogue beers, because Nugget Nectar comes out not that long after that, and that is one of my favorite beers of all time. That I can get some Mad Elf during the winter time, that would be really nice to me.
Probably one that doesn't get a lot of love. It's just a brewery that doesn't get a lot of love really anymore. But Anchor's Christmas beer, I always really enjoyed, which is a big malty. There's not a lot. It's not a super spiced beer. It's not an over the top on alcohol beer, but it is a beer that ages pretty well. And I used to really enjoy on a regular basis during the Christmas time. I also am a big fan of Bell's, which is, I believe, a Scotch ale that they do for Christmas.
I've never had Bell's Christmas ale. I haven't had Anchor in a very, very long time.
Me neither.
And because I don't believe that the local distributor for them carries it down here and brings it down here. I remember not liking it when I first had it. I thought that you can probably go back on my blog and find my review of it. I think I said something along the lines of, it tastes like a fruit cake had a pine tree or a Christmas tree pushed into it. I didn't like the flavors at that time. I am very willing to go back and revisit if I can get it. Because my tastes have changed considerably since then. There's been a ton of beers that I did not like during that time that I do like now, and things that I used to like that I don't like anymore. One that I know I've had in a sampling setting, but never had like a full-on tasting or a full-on pint or anything, because we don't get them down here, is Great Lakes Christmas Ale. I always hear tons of people talk about that being like a staple of the holiday season.
I have never had it, and I'm from Michigan originally, but I wasn't drinking a lot of craft beer before I moved down to Florida when I was in my early 20s. But I'm such a big fan of the Great Lakes products in general. Mm-hmm. So their Dortmunder is one of my favorite beers, period.
Yes.
End of story. Full stop, as they say. So I would I would love to try that beer at some point. I have a feeling that I would really enjoy it.
I for some reason feel like you have had it at like a bottle share that you and I have been at before, like probably at Coffee District. But you know, a lot of those tend to get overwhelming, and a lot of stuff gets thrown at you, and something like that could probably very easily fall into the wayside when barrel-aged stouts and other things are being thrown at you.
For sure. And any one of these, the extremes are the things that stick out to us.
Yeah.
Either the beers that we love the most or the beers that have the most insane flavor profile, the most direct, the most extreme flavors, right? Individual flavors, whether it's, oh my God, this one tastes like star anise. I hate star anise.
I do too.
So I'm not going to enjoy this. But there are certain beers that will stick out for that reason or for others. But just like on our live stream when we were reviewing that beer from New Belgium, I just keep coming back to the fact that I want a well-made beer with subtlety and complexity. And the Christmas beers that I tend to like the most at this stage of my life are not the ones that hit you over the head with any flavor. They're the ones that come at you with subtlety. They're malty. They're well-balanced. And it tends to be a lot of these legacy breweries, whether they're overseas or here in the U.S., and some of these legacy brands. Bring it back to Old Fezziwig, man. That is not a kind of beer that hits you over the head with any one flavor. It's just a well-made, really well-balanced, good beer.
Yeah, I mean, you've only been on this podcast for half a year-ish, but you've known me for a very long time and seen my progression in this industry. You put a pint of mild in front of me, and I am a happy fucking camper. Because it is simple, yet subtly complex, and that's all I want in this world is just a pint of dark mild in front of me, and I'm happy.
I just for funsies, I went on to Beer Advocate, which is listing their top 20 Christmas beers.
Oh, okay.
And I believe...
Let's go through this. Let's go through it.
Well, I don't want to go through it. Yeah. First of all, I don't know most of these beers.
Okay.
They're not things that are, even the breweries are not familiar to me in a lot of ways. And I'm just looking at this and kind of shocked at that. There is like Great Lakes is number 6.
Okay.
Right. And they are the highest rated they are the highest ratings with a lot of ratings. Right? Because some of these have 63 ratings, 136 ratings. We know how the systems work there. But this one has 3,000 ratings, and it's number 6. That's impressive. Yeah. That's definitely going to be a good beer. There's a beer above it, and I am not going to say what it is because I don't want to bash a brewery. But it's a terrible, terrible Christmas beer. In my opinion, undrinkable. And
I can't wait to find out after the show.
Yeah, and it's higher. I don't understand this, but it's interesting for me to look at this list and not really know many of these, and to see so many of these beers that are 26 ratings, 89 ratings that people have not a lot of people are drinking, but they're rated so highly, while other beers that we know of are incredible are down here at 50, 60, Fezziwig, 54.
It's 54th?
54th.
Jesus.
It just it kind of makes me sad. That's why I don't want to go over this, because it's just the kind of thing that makes me sad. I mean, I haven't had a lot of these beers, so maybe I'm completely wrong, and these beers are every one of them is better than Fezziwig, but I cannot imagine that there are 53 better Christmas beers than that beer.
I just pulled up the list that I assume that you're looking at. This is crazy, because like if you just want to look at pure volume, it's like the number 4 beer is from a pretty highly regarded brewery, and it's just shy of 1,000. But like Great Lakes Christmas beer, 3,200. Jubilee from Deschutes is on there, almost 3,000. Anderson Valley's Winter Solstice is on there. That's over 1,000. And then it's a ton of like small time.
By the way,
Sweetwater's Festival is down at number 40 with 800 ratings.
And by the way, I do not see St. Bernardus Christmas on here.
I'm looking for Mad Elf. And I see old Fezziwig there. No, I could control F, Mad. It's not on there. This is the top 100 winter warmer beers. I mean, maybe it's not a winter warmer, I guess, but like, this is a crazy, insane list. There are beers on here that have 10 ratings. Is that the minimum? Is 10 the minimum?
It's supposed to be a weighted average, and I this is not
Fuck
even to be
here.
This is not to be a shot at Beer Advocate. I know that Untapped has become a much more popular platform for ticking beers, rating beers, showing everybody how many beers you've drank. So maybe it's a platform that's not being used as much, but I remember when they were a big hairy deal for the growth of Funky Buddha, and when we got our 25th rating, which weighted our average enough so that we had the top 3 porters in the world when we were making 5 gallons of beer at a time. Yeah, so I know how these things can be.
Pouring beer in Boston as Lucky Buddha.
And so I know how these things can be, and we were thrilled and proud, and I'm sure that there were some people going, Barrel of Monks, Jesus, Funky Buddha in Boca Raton, Florida, and a tiny brew hub has a top 2 or 3 porters in the world with 25 ratings apiece. There's certainly someone saying this is absolutely ridiculous. Have you had Tatty Porter before? Have you had, Holiday Porter from Sam Adams Boston Beer? So I've been on both sides of this. I understand that these are just ratings. These are just rankings. These are subjective. But it is a little disappointing when you look at this and you see beers that you imagine should be on there that aren't on there. Or beers that are on there that should be way higher, especially when you're on our side and you know how to make beer and you've done it professionally and you know what the people in the industry actually enjoy. It's a different level.
Real quick rant, because I love to put this out there anytime I hear Funky Buddha's name. Buddha in this brand's name is spelled Buddha, not AH. Especially for you local accounts down here. The fuck? It's written right on, like, the amount of places that I see down here that have it spelled Buddah, when you have the bottle or can label right in front of you. How does that happen?
You've also got Google
That
and
as well.
spell check. So there's not a lot of excuses for that. I think we could do an entire... the thing is, I say these things...
An entire spelling error episode?
Yes, that's what I was going to. Because you guys have done so many shows that I had nothing to do with, which, by the way, I'm sorry for all of our fans that I wasn't around for those. I know I would have made them better. I get it. I'm better than Phil. You don't have to keep telling me that. But the fact that you've done so many of these shows, I don't know some of the topics that you covered, but an entire show about ratings and how we feel about them, I could talk about this for hours.
I don't think that we have done. Like, just off the top of my head, we haven't covered it. I mean, I think it comes up from time to time here and there, but that could be a really good topic to discuss. And not only ratings themselves, but how a owner, brewer, whatever, takes that into consideration, like a little, a lot, somewhere in the middle, not at all. Like, there are some breweries who are very adamant about, like, we use that as market research to decide on what we brew, while others are like, fuck you, we're not taking that into consideration. We're going to brew what we want. Screw the system. We delete our account if we could, like Yelp. And I get it. Like, I wish that, I won't go too much into it, but I wish it was just a check-in thing and there was no ratings because...
Well, we shouldn't go too far into it because we have a whole show in our back pocket, and we should just roll with that.
Look, that
Are you okay?
hit the back of my throat a little crazy there.
Apparently, listen, Mike, don't die on me. I can't do the rest of this podcast. I cannot do the rest of this podcast myself.
Neither can my children.
If your infant children could step in for you and edit this, that would be great.
That would be fantastic. I've already been like, hey, Jack, look, this is Audacity. Daddy hates this. Look at that. You see that? That's Joel. We don't like how Joel does stuff when he's not talking. Oh, and Bruno, that one's over there. That's Kevin. Kevin's just as bad.
Are we both equally bad?
In your own ways, yeah.
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear that.
You have worse background noise from your fan, I'm assuming, that's in your room. And he's like, let me turn that off. Joel does a lot more fidgeting. And I know how I used to say that you were a bad fidgeter when we did our other podcast, but Joel has gotten worse at that.
And I've gotten better.
You have. Your room has gotten worse, so that's working against you.
But once I get that figured out, Mike, I'm gonna be freaking golden.
And I've gotten great at editing you guys. So tooting my own horn there.
Is this the time because
none
we're talking?
You will ever know if I'm bad or not on recordings because I get to edit myself.
But we don't care. Is this the point where we transition this into our old wrestling podcast because Joel's not here because we were just talking about that? Sure. Now we just spend like 15 minutes talking about AEW.
I really don't know what the fuck's going on.
I was just kidding, Mike. I don't want to do that.
I know Roman's still a champion, and Brock is back, and things are going. Ring of Honor is kind of dead, but Braun is there. I don't know.
We don't have to do that, Mike. I thought you were going to shoot that down and it would be funny, and then I was going to be sad. But
then I just made it sad.
No, you didn't follow my lead. We're not a great comedy duo.
You didn't follow my lead on a segue I gave you earlier, but it's okay.
Oh, which one? Let's go back to there. Let's do take two.
You wanted to talk about not aging beers, and I gave you a segue into that, and then you just decided to go, yeah, aging beers is fine.
Did I say that?
Well, when I was like, hey, your beer, it sticks around for a little bit. What can you do about that? And you're like, oh, yeah, we'll keep some of them. When you were like, I want to talk about don't age Mad Elf. Don't age these beers. Before we went on, I can edit this all out.
But no, let's keep this all in. Let people see how the sausage is made. Listen, we can't be mind readers here. It's not like we're on a Slack chat and talking about this stuff. We're being real. We're having a real conversation. I thought I took it off into like my specific situation and how it works out because of the way that our brewery operates. But listen, we talked about my partner Bill McPhee over at Barrel Amongst and his love and affinity for Belgian beer and Belgian Christmas ales and his vintages. I'll tell you 100% across the board, every single time I had a beer that was either 1 year old, a 1 year old beer versus a 3-year-old beer, the 1 year old beer was always better. Always better. The younger beers can age. And there are beers that are better 6 months after they're produced. But way too often people are holding on to beers to way too long. And Christmas beers are a prime suspect for that. Because people do want to have verticals. They do want to taste them all together. And this is something that I will never see eye to eye with Bill on. And Bill's a genius. He knows beer as well as any person I've ever known. But when we drink
his Mensa score after here, if you're saying he's a genius,
I don't know that he's in Mensa, but I will challenge him to do so.
Oh, so you're a liar.
Yes, well, just being in Mensa doesn't mean. Anyway,
I thought they have the trademark on genius.
Do they actually have a trademark?
I don't know.
You would be the compliance person that would know about these kind of things, Mike, so I wouldn't put anything past you. But
I'll
he
follow up
does.
on the next episode.
But he's the kind of guy who knows beer really well and will tell you that this 4 or 5-year-old beer is better than this 1-year-old beer. And I'm here to say, in my opinion, almost always no.
All too often, a lot of those beers are oxidized as fuck, and especially the ones that people tend to do the most, like your Thomas Hardy's. Like, I've never tasted an aged Thomas Hardy more than a couple years and been like, oh, that's good. No, they're always oxidized and taste like cardboard and slightly vinegary. And
Have I told my Thomas Hardy story on this podcast?
I don't think so, but feel free to go ahead again. If you've heard it, just listen again.
This will take 5 to 7 minutes. You can just fast forward. So Ryan Sense, who was the owner of Funky Buddha, who was my former boss, was a big time beer collector. He had great beers. He was extremely generous. He shared it with a lot of us, and we are lucky to be able to try a lot of the beers that he had. He bought I'm going to say 1984. It could have been 86. It could have been 87. Doesn't matter for the story. He bought a Thomas Hardy, an old bottle, and got us all together, maybe 6, 7 people, friends, well-wishers, craft beer enthusiasts, had us over his home, made dinner, and we had a little bottle share, but the piece de resistance was going to be this aged bottle of Thomas Hardy's. And he poured it, and everyone's all excited. And we all sit down and we take our little sip. And I watched as, I'm going to say 6 people, once again, not important, but details, pal. I watched as 6 people barely stomached it, found it disgusting, but because they're beer nerds and this bottle, and because this bottle was special, they had to like it. They had to like the beer. So they went around the room going, well, it's really complex and malty. And eventually someone, I want to say it was me, it probably wasn't, I don't speak up in situations. Someone was like, this is gross and tastes like soy sauce. And then every person had a sigh of relief and they could say, oh yeah, this is garbage, don't drink this. But up until that point, because it was special, because someone had paid an exorbitant amount of money for it or traded their firstborn child, they had to love it. They had to. It's a requirement in that situation. And it was just so funny because I knew and loved and respected all these people, but they were willing to perpetuate the lie for the sake of the narrative of that night. And it made me understand every bottle share I've ever been to, with a bunch of people drinking undrinkable, under-attenuated, garbage, one-dimensional beers and saying they were the greatest beers of all time because it was special, because it was rare, and because someone paid a lot of money for it.
Oh, man. And here I was thinking that Ryan's firstborn was Riley, but he traded them away for that beer.
That you learn a lot from my stories, Mike. You learn a lot.
I do remember him doing a Cantillon tasting at the lounge of old vintage bottles, and there was one Lupep in there that was terrible. And so many people were like, no, this is good because of this. And they're like, you get Dirty Diaper out of this, right? Like, yeah, but that's the way. Like, no, that's not an appeasing taste.
Listen, it only partially triggers my gag reflex. Right? Partially. That's what a good vintage sour beer from Belgium should do, right?
Yes. All right. I think it's about time to wrap up. I heard one of the kids crying, so I should probably go help out with that. let's get into last calls here. The point in time where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to rant, rave, and say whatever unopposed, unobjected about whatever they want. I will go first. I'm going to make this very easy because it is a holiday season. I said earlier, this is probably my favorite holiday. I love Christmas, and it doesn't take a crazy religious zealot to like Christmas. It can take people who love lights, who like the smell of furs, who like ornaments, who like movies, who like silly Christmas songs. I love all of that, and I will always love all of that, and I can't wait to indoctrinate my children or make them hate this season so much. Hopefully learn an appreciation for it. I hope that you and all of your family have a wonderful, amazing Christmas holiday. Whether you celebrate it or not, I hope that you just spend this time with people that you love and care about safely, and that you enjoy each other's time and presence, eat good food, drink good drink, and take it all in, and just remember those times. Other than that, we'll be back. No, we won't even be back, I think, until the next year. So a Happy New Year to you all as well. And in that case, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, whatever you want. I hope that you and whoever you feel important with enjoy these times together.
So I begged on this video chat for Mike to go first during last call because I'll be honest, I didn't have anything. And I still don't, by the way. But one of the things I had in my back pocket is I can make a really nice message about Christmas because I love Christmas and I'm another atheist, cold-hearted bastard who loves the holidays and holiday music and what have you. And then I couldn't think of anything and Mike steals my bit and then does it better than I would have done, and with just kindness and humility, and basically you did the speech from Scrooged, which is the best holiday movie of all time. So I am going to do my last call on the fact that Scrooged is the best holiday movie of all time. So when it comes to holiday movie watching, you've got a few requirements. I know a lot of people love Christmas Vacation. It's a great movie. I'm not going to say it's not. But real great Christmas movies, you got to have Scrooged in there. You got to go back to the original Grinch. I don't care that they redid it with Pixar or whatever animation studio, and I think Benedict Cumberbatch was the Grinch. Screw that. Screw the Jim Carrey version. You got to do the original Grinch.
I didn't know that there was a new one. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was like,
you're not allowed to.
Are you saying? I'm sorry.
You're not allowed to, Mike. Okay, this is my time.
Jim Carrey in the animated.
You only know Jim Carrey?
And the animated.
Yes, the animated, the original from like the 1960s. Yeah. Yes, with Boris Karloff doing the Grinch and the narration. You got to do the Grinch. Got to do Scrooged. Okay. You got to do Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. There's a lot of problematic stuff in that because they don't like him until he can, like, he's a utility that they can use, and that's really problematic. There's also a part where the female reindeer aren't allowed to do something because it's man's work. That's regressive. We have to forget about that, but it's still a great thing, and I have a lot of nostalgia about it. You got to do Elf as far as a contemporary Christmas movie. If we're talking about contemporary Christmas movies, Elf way in front of Christmas Vacation. Sorry, not sorry. But those are the movies that are 100% up there. Do not do Love Actually. Don't do it. Every one of those storylines is problematic. Every single solitary one of them. It's it's a feel-good movie for a time and a place, but we got to move on from that. That's not good. And also, it's time to retire Charlie Brown's Christmas special, because it's also, they just beat on Charlie Brown the whole time and basically call him an asshole. And then the whole thing comes down to the fact that it's Jesus' birthday. There's really not a lot there that's really good. It's just nostalgia, unlike Rudolph that has some high points for you there. But that's a few things that are holiday must-watches. And I'm sure if Joel was here, he'd say, well, Die Hard, you got to watch Die Hard because it's a Christmas movie. I don't know that he said that, but it sounds like something he would say. So
you're filling in for him admirably.
In spirit. Once again, you're talking during my freaking thing, and I think these are your rules. These are not mine. I have campaigned to change these rules, and yet I am the one being thrust upon. But that's where I went. Christmas movies, Scrooge, still the best, and that's my hill to die on.
All right. This isn't an opposition, but I like Scrooged.
It's such a good movie.
Yeah, it is.
The final speech from Bill Murray is just, it breaks your heart, warms your heart,
Yeah.
does stuff to your heart.
All right. Kev, anything that you want to plug before year's end?
No, that is my Christmas gift to you. I will not plug my brewery.
I will not plug barrelofmonks.com.
I didn't plug anything. I didn't drink a beer from my brewery or my other brewery. I'm not plugging it. I just want to wish you all a happy holidays.
You can follow me at Mike Loves Beer on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow the show at United We Drink on Twitter, at United We Drink Pod on Instagram. And you can follow the show, like you can subscribe to it on any of the major podcast services, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podnods. There's so many services. Overcast, our friend of the show, Ed Roberts, spoke so highly of them in a very heated text message. He donates money to them, so good on you. Ed, you never donated anything to our fundraisers, but that's neither here nor there. If you want to support the show monetarily, you can check out our sponsors, unitedwedrink.com/sponsors. Also, we have shirts, buttons, stickers, and all that fun stuff at unitedwedrink.com/store. Other than that, again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Christmas if you're outside of America, because apparently they don't say Merry outside of America. And I'm for that. We'll see you guys in the new year. Be safe, be cool to one another, be safe out there. Cheers.
Cheers.